What this means is that the US empire, which relies on the US currency to transact globally, is crumbling. Also, Washington would be severely underfunded if it didn't receive the income that comes with being the World Bank. Further evidence that it is a Ponzi scheme. Plus, in a Ponzi scheme, everything works fine as long as there are always some people who buy into it and lend their support, but as soon as those people go, the scheme falls apart. Therefore, the BRICS nations are actively devaluing the dollar. The dollar's use around the world is falling precipitously as it would after the fall of any empire. We are now, according to Max Keiser, a matter of months away from a disastrous economic catastrophe that has been simmering for years. He stresses how bad things are for the fiat currency systems of many nations, using the latest inflation figures to illustrate how unstable and rapidly increasing these systems are. Real consequences, such people's escalating struggles to purchase food, energy, and shelter are highlighted by Keiser. Interest payments on the national debt have surpassed the budget for the military, he says, and the economy is getting out of hand. Keiser argues that trickle-down economics has failed to deliver on its promises of economic growth and points out that capital has vanished as a result of money printing and misallocated investments. This practice has contributed to a mysterious financial black hole that is under the hands of large accounting companies and involves trillions of dollars. He foresees a Bitcoin standard being rapidly adopted as a result of a cascade of bank collapses. Keiser claims that when more banks fail in the coming months, the questionable accounting practices that have kept hundreds of these institutions afloat will come to light. Now we see that, as one would expect, all that cash leads to inflation, which in turn causes middle-class families to go bankrupt, and as a result, people are furious and demand that the international community withdraw all financial support for Ukraine. But to cut to the chase, they ought to be staging a protest regarding replacing fiat currency with Bitcoin, similar to what is done in El Salvador. The miracle of El Salvador is available to you as well. The Bitcoin economy is self-sustaining. The money is Bitcoin. When people in the US get upset about foreign aid going to countries like Ukraine, for instance, the government prints the money. They'll be able to do whatever they want. Ukraine can receive it printed and sent by them. In El Salvador, you are free to use Bitcoin forever if you so desire. Currently, there is no adoption rate, rising on a yearly and monthly basis. However, if you are able to complete it immediately, fine. According to my Bitcoin Beach friend Mike Peterson, El Salvador was the birthplace of both the Bitcoin revolution and the circular economy. These individuals would have to attempt to withdraw cash from an ATM located 20 miles away. Plus, it was a major pain. However, according to Bitcoin standards, neither your nationality nor the currency you use should be a concern. Bitcoin allows you to transact because it is local. No one can ban businesses from using Bitcoin because it's instantaneous and nobody can stop them. Interrupting or censoring is not allowed. The United States is no longer the epicenter of liberty El Salvador is. This is the message I'm trying to convey. Just get out of here. Now, the United States is further down the line. They have lost their luster as a gleaming metropolis. Leaving the United States is the new normal. End of story. There's a bull. We are in the banana republic. In his most recent address to CPAC, President Kelly touched on inflation and the United States' current strategy of monetizing its own debt. The United States produces money to pay off its own debt since foreign investors are unwilling to purchase American debt. Call it what you will, debt monetization. Also, 50 years ago, Americans would look at Central America and joke that they had to pay for their own debt. A banana republic, that is you. Meanwhile, at CPAC in Washington, D.C., El Salvador's president is delivering a lecture on the subject. You are now turning your own debt into profit. Because of its status as the world's reserve currency since WWII, the United States effectively enjoys a monopoly on this. They slapped sanctions on Russia and took Russian assets while simultaneously kicking Iran off a fast. So to answer your question, yes, they have militarized the dollar. This is a terrible thing to do because it motivates these countries to find an alternative to the dollar. I think that sums up BRICS, their current activities. The BRICS countries are actively weaning themselves off the dollar, and its use is falling precipitously around the world. And this, my friends, signifies the crumbling of the United States empire, that global financial system predicated on the dollar. Also, Washington would be severely underfunded if it didn't receive the income that comes with being the World Bank. Further evidence that it is a Ponzi scheme. Plus, in a Ponzi scheme, everything works fine as long as there are always some people who buy into it and lend their support, but as soon as those people go, the scheme falls apart. Quickly, as in the latter stages of any empire, We are now at that stage. This enormous Ponzi scheme has been running for 50 or 60 years, and the US empire, namely the US dollar empire, is the final inning of it. When it falls, it will be similar to Building 7. In its own little universe, it will merely be falling freely. How did that happen will be the question on everyone's mind. The change was abrupt. You can bet that they will quickly and devastatingly come up with excuses, and the southern borders are completely unchecked, you know. Additionally, they observe that less and fewer Salvadorans are migrating northward from El Salvador as a result of President Bukel's assistance with a major issue they're facing at the southern border. They genuinely love him. Now they're hoping other nations will take a page out of Bukel's playbook. Migrants entering the country from the south would also decrease as a result of this. Second, agreeing with you, it is difficult. Let me tell you something, the International Monetary Fund is involved. John Perkins, who worked for the bankers at the International Monetary Fund (IIF), wrote about this in his book Confessions of an Economic Hitman. In addition, Wall Street bankers would dispatch economic hitmen to assassinate officials from Southern or Central American nations whenever such nations did something that the bankers on Wall Street disapproved of. The nation's head of state, etc. There are several examples of this throughout history. Everyone agrees on it. It has been done precisely this way. The International Monetary Fund is playing that function now. In other words, it's an effort to have every country use the dollar. Last week, Donald Trump stated his intention to pursue nations that demonetize their currency. They are consequently rather anxious. The dollar's decline in status as the world's reserve currency has them rather worried. Nothing they can do will change the situation. The president is currently leaving the International Monetary Fund (IMF), but he has pretty much gone toe-to-toe with the IMF. Thus, the economy is expanding adequately even without assistance from the IMF. I am deeply grateful. Coincidentally, El's national balance sheet shows a substantial amount of cash, nearly $1 billion in Bitcoin. They're storing Bitcoin in their reserves, which will allow them to expand beyond this financial chaos. Thus, not only is Bitcoin accepted as daily legal money, but the country has also recorded it as an asset on its balance sheet. We offer a program where you can adopt a Salvadoran passport. In order to receive a passport from El Salvador, people are donating $1 million to us in as little as 2 weeks. Afterwards, that sum is invested into Bitcoin. There's another kind of financial architecture at work here that's working in Bitcoin's favor. So not only will Bitcoin be legal tender, but the country will also become a totally reserved Bitcoin country. This might make it the wealthiest country in the world, especially with everyone going ballistic over fiat currency. In my opinion, El Salvador will soon overtake Singapore. In the next 5, 6, or 7 years, this country's gross domestic product will increase by a factor of 3. You should be here, Jimmy. The United States is a horrific mess. Feel free to squander your time in that pitiful place if you so desire. Only El Salvador offers the chance to be a part of a revolutionary movement where hope is rampant, the future is being built, and economic and speech freedoms are unrestricted.